Bitcoin continuing to flirt with that $40,000 area. What is Bitcoin going to do in the short term? Testing resistance, failing. In this video, I want to discuss two extremely important charts that you need to be aware of. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Crypto Capital Venture. Hit that subscribe and like on the way in. Let's jump into the Bitcoin video. This is Bitcoin on the hourly chart. Some extremely important trend lines we need to watch and talk about. Before we do, I'm going to dissect exactly what's going on, including targets and what's happening on this hourly chart. This is the other chart that is so important, and I haven't talked about it in some time. This is the zoomed out daily chart. This is going back to 2013 and beyond. We're talking about the 50-day moving average, this blue ocean that you see on the screen illustrated as a histogram. We talk about so often, and let me just zoom in just to show you this. We talk about so often Bitcoin getting overextended from the 50-day moving average. Currently 72% or so overextended from the 50-day moving average. Now, you know, in a typical climate of Bitcoin, when we get 20, 30%, we anticipate these throwbacks, right? Here's a 20% or so throwback to the 50-day moving average. And at that point, we're looking for support. But on the macro level, right, when Bitcoin's in these very bullish environments, historically, Bitcoin gets extremely overextended, extremely overbought. And on the topic of overbought, I want to throw this note out there. Bitcoin's overbought because so many people are buying because supply is low on Bitcoin. And this can continue. I want to just throw that out there. But historically, I do want to just show you, we've been here before in terms of Bitcoin, 72% overextended of the 50 moving average, euphoria, people just thinking Bitcoin's never going to stop because Bitcoin is, you know, this supply is in a low supply environment. But let's go back, and I just want to show you this. This is, you know, I think is really important data that we should at least have in the back of our minds. This is 2013. Bitcoin overextended around 247% from the 50-day moving average before a pullback to the 50-day moving average. This was, and this is what I want to illustrate for you, from when it left the 50-day moving average and really just never touched it, we're looking at around 93 days of that happening to 247% or so overextension. 54 days, right? This was 2013 as well. And we have 54 days trading just overextended from the 50-day moving average, 118%. And then the story continues. This was not as long ago. This was 2017, 54 days overextended, 42% from the 50-day moving average, maybe a little bit more than 42% throwback. But notice now we're in that bull market, right? That last bull market cycle, overextended into the 50-day moving average, continue to the upside, right? So just keep in mind, that's kind of what we're looking for in any regard for Bitcoin to trade even in sideways into the 50-day moving average this time around. And we'll look at that in a second. But here's the top of the last bull market, 86% overextended, 72 days above the 50-day moving average. Now, this was last summer, July 2019 or so, 60% overextended, 86 days overextended from the 50-day moving average. And now here we are. Now it looks kind of commonplace, doesn't it? 78 days overextended, 72%. This is actually from just this exact move that Bitcoin's making on the daily chart is something we've seen time and time again for Bitcoin. So please realize that. And the reason I say that is because this very well could continue. Bitcoin is in a whole new kind of cycle, whole new kind of world that we've never experienced before in terms of what's happening with institutional money coming in. So overextension, 100% plus, 150% plus, 200% plus, that's in play, everybody. And that's like $50,000 to $70,000 range. But at any given time right now, you should at least anticipate this 50-day moving average needing to catch up and trade somewhere into Bitcoin, right? Even if that's Bitcoin just, maybe it's boring for a while, trading in $30,000 to $40,000 range. That gives a 50-day moving average time to catch up. And that's one thing you should all anticipate. And I really wanted to throw that out there. Now let's jump into the Bitcoin chart. This is what's going on the hourly. Very, very interesting. And this is because we've seen a very similar move previously, not long ago, just weeks ago. That's what I want to talk about. So we've been tracking this rising channel in blue I have not moved this lower trend line right here. I don't want to move it. We have our breakout target, $37,000. We broke below that trend line. So that target is just in play. Targets don't have to be hit immediately, right? This is an hourly chart. And we just broke below the trend line right here yesterday. So we have to be patient to see if this $37 move hits. It's only a $3,000 move for Bitcoin. That could happen in an hourly candle. It's not even a 10% move. So it's such a realistic target to downside. You should probably be very, very keen and aware of. But we're not there yet. And the reason I say this is because Bitcoin, and a lot of people do this. And I think I mentioned this briefly in yesterday's video. You could take this trend line and move it now. Since we have these new swing lows, we can move it here. Now it's kind of a rising channel, just maybe a little bit more broadening. But I don't want to do that. I want to leave that there. But I do want to chart this other trend line now, because Bitcoin has kind of fallen into this new area of higher highs and higher lows. And that's probably the most bullish thing you see happening on Bitcoin right now. Higher highs and higher lows, no matter how you chart this. Now, we were tracking very similar setup, but with these rising wedges at the end of December. This is December 25th video. I'm not going to play a clip, but I want to show you this chart. Bitcoin, as you can see, broke through this first rising wedge to the downside. Then it broke through this other trend line to the downside. But even when it did that, Bitcoin was doing something interesting, putting in these higher highs and higher lows and breaking back into the wedge. Now, this was at $24,000 or so when I did this video, and you can see how far Bitcoin has progressed since then. This was like weeks ago, the end of December 25th, I believe. Yes. So this was on Christmas. Now we are sitting at $40,000 Bitcoin. So here's that chart back then, and look how it played out, right? Look at this. This is how it played out. Series of higher highs and higher lows, rising channels, rising wedges. Somebody commented yesterday, said I should learn technical analysis or something because rising wedges are bearish. But I don't think that person may have studied the Bitcoin cycles and Bitcoin data and what Bitcoin does in bull markets. It often just keeps breaking out of higher highs and higher low patterns. And that's what we're looking at. So when you're looking at a pattern that we talked about and the setup that we talked about in this video, Bitcoin had, it had some work to do to just break through all of these trend lines and break back above, but it did it. Now we're in a very similar thing, right? Bitcoin broke through this one trend line, and then we have this other trend line Bitcoin broke through. But if you just look at the chart, it really still is just putting these higher highs and higher lows. And even though very short term, as I do this video, you can just see Bitcoin seeing some very short term support. It's a higher low in terms of what Bitcoin has just did from this swing low. So there's a very strong case for Bitcoin after it has consolidated, right? Basically, on the short term, it's consolidated. There's a very strong case Bitcoin can break back into this channel and even into this channel. It's only to $44,000. A move like that for Bitcoin would be basically a 10% bullish move for Bitcoin. You see some altcoins trying to make a little bit of a move. And so keep an eye on altcoins, I would say, right now. If that continues, it could be a hint for Bitcoin, maybe just taking a very short-term consolidation before making an explosive move like this. This target continues to move up as Bitcoin trades along this channel. So right now, the target at this very hour is right around 49,700. We have a bullish case for Bitcoin hitting $50,000 on this chart alone. And really, that's a breakout target, whether you want to use this blue lower trend line or even this new yellow trend line. The breakout target is right around $50,000. And we will be approaching a $1 trillion market cap for Bitcoin at that time if Bitcoin can get there. Now, Bitcoin's not far away from making that happen. Just to give you an idea, $50,000 Bitcoin, or that's actually 52,000. So actually, the breakout target is actually right around $52,000. 27% move or so for Bitcoin, very much in play. But please keep in mind for the short term, what happens at $37,000? That is extremely in play. Remember, it's only not even a 10% move to the downside. Be careful. Be ready for something like that. In terms of what's transpired on this hourly chart, every yellow line you see going horizontal is a $1,000 move for Bitcoin. I like seeing that. I like checking that out. But consolidation to this upper trend line, this yellow upper trend line, a longer term rising channel that we've tracked recently. that trend line sitting right now around $36,000 to $37,000. So a case for Bitcoin revisiting this trend line in the coming day or so, or the coming hours, very strong. Remember that $37,000 area is a target for Bitcoin from that pattern, and it would make sense for Bitcoin to revisit an upper trend line for potential support and continuation to the upside. That's in play. Weekly chart, last thing I want to mention, last thing I want to note to you, yes, weekly chart is overbought like no other time before. I mean, maybe 2 other times before it's been this overbought, exactly almost in November 2013, and a little bit higher back in April 2013. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean much, seriously, because when Bitcoin did this on this weekly RSI, it did something it really never did. It consolidated in overbought area, right? And so when we talk about that case of Bitcoin consolidating in the $30,000 to $40,000 range for the 50-day moving average to catch up a little bit before continuing up, that could be what Bitcoin does again, and it could do it up here, right? Or just down a little bit and just consolidate in overbought. And I think that's this new thing that we're in for Bitcoin. And that truly is a demonstration of the supply and demand factor that we always talk about on this YouTube channel. PayPal users alone pretty much buying all new supply of Bitcoin coming into the market. So that doesn't even account for institutional investors and everybody else buying Bitcoin outside of that. So there's a supply shock happening right now. How long does it last? And what do consolidations look like for Bitcoin? That's all in play, but that's what I'm looking at on the short-term charts, on the hourly. Can Bitcoin break above this area? And that is right around $41,000, let's just call it $500, this trend line. That would be the first step. If you see Bitcoin start making a little move up to that area, be very aware, because actually on this hourly chart, you can even see it's a little ugly, but a left shoulder, a head, right? This head came slightly below this wick, kind of close, but you can see potential head and shoulders setup, a very small one, inverse head and shoulders, everybody, with a neckline kind of like right in this area of $41,300 to $500. So, that could be the case for Bitcoin breaking through this trend line. If it gets separation to the target of that inverse head and shoulders, we're looking at right around $45,000. That could be the case to test this area. These are the moves you want to just track on Bitcoin in the short term and see if Bitcoin can make it happen. Those are my thoughts today. Hit that subscribe, hit that like, have an awesome, beautiful Saturday. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.